Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, guys. It's Dr. Liz Jenkins with Dr. Liz Coaching here. And we're going to talk about some more stuff about inside couples conflicts. And today I really wanted to talk about what's normal, what's healthy, set some expectations and share some really interesting statistics. Yes, we actually have stats thanks to some wonderful research from Dr. Gottmans on conflict. And so let's get going. Let's talk about it. I have many couples that come into my office and they say we fight all the time. We can't agree on anything. And they would both be nodding their heads. Yep, we can't agree on anything. And I have to step back and say, wait a minute, guys, you just agreed that you can't agree on anything. So we're going to have to wipe out that word of anything and realize that some of the time you guys can agree on things, and the majority of times you aren't agreeing on things. And that kind of caught him by surprise. Like, yeah, I guess that's right. That is one thing that we do agree on is that we don't agree on things, and we have these huge fights and all this kind of stuff. And I get it. Nobody wants to feel like they wake up and the relationship or the day is going to start off with a fight. I get it. Okay. So let's talk about timing and let's talk really about statistically how available each of us are in the course of a day to be both emotionally and physically present. And with all the pull and the rush and all of the things that we get going, our time together keeps getting, sliced down and we come preloaded, right? With probably all the other stresses or all the other things on our list that haven't been addressed or need to be addressed or get done or handled. And so that's where starts to get dicey. And they started doing the statistics where he said, okay, um, how often do you think both of you are emotionally and physically ready to have one of those talks? And when the numbers were run, they figured about 9% of the time, okay, both people had the ability as well as the interest to show up to get something resolved. So what's that tell me? So that we have to be very careful and very um, timely and mindful of when we do and how we do show up to have these kind of conversations. Because statistically, about 91% of the time, one or both of us is we're not can't do it, don't have the bandwidth, been busy with the kids, tired, it's bedtime, it's too early, whatever, right? You may have experienced that. So we want to know that having the expectation that any point in time, my partner or I should be ready to have a difficult discussion or should be able to have a conversation without a conflict is incorrect. Okay. And we're going to start talking later on. I'm going to talk about some of these words like should and never and always or anything, because those are also part of the puzzle. So we now agree that we all now can know that the majority of time, one or both of us is just not going to be in the mood to have a difficult conversation. And if it's still something that's important to me and I need to press the point and have that conversation, I need to keep that in the back of my mind that just because I'm ready, they might not be. All right. And expecting them to show up as well as expecting them to agree with us is not going to be a realistic expectation. Because they've also did some more stats and things called fights, conflicts, disagreements, arguments, regrettable events. You know, those oopses where you'd like to just like, oh my gosh, redo it. Well, the Gottmans did some research and they found that 69% of the things that couples are disagreeing on are going to be unresolvable in that moment. That means no matter how long you guys stay at it, locked in that, discussion, debate, persuasive, or outrage kind of thing, we're not going to be able to agree in that moment. And so what they did find is that 31% of the times we're going to be easy peasies. We already agree, or it's very simple to come to that um, agreement. Okay. So I like to have folks start with their strength. And I want you to remember that if you're having more fights that don't seem to go right or you don't see eye to eye, you're actually in the to be expected realm. And so when we start realizing and start cleaning up some of these myths or some of our expectations. It kind of takes some of the fear factor out or normalizes it. Say, okay, we're okay. We're like many other couples. We just got to figure out, now that we know this, what do we do with it? So now that we know that 31% of the time we're going to be able to probably resolve things, it varies for couples, it can go up and down the scale. But we also know that there's going to be the majority of the time we aren't necessarily going to agree in that moment or get resolved or agree to disagree in that moment. And so it needs to be learning how to set that aside for now so that then we can come back. Because in those strategies, and we're going to talk about those later, we're going to talk about how you can have a conflict, set it aside, and come back at it and get the resolution or get the agreement or the buy-in or the understanding or the repairs for those events together. All right. So it's really not about forcing it in that moment. Okay. So I hope this kind of, you start to see like, okay, relationships are going to have conflicts. Successful couples know that. Successful couples don't take it to heart and think there's like something majorly wrong, but they don't ignore the conflicts. They don't ignore those issues, and they set it aside in the moment, and they'll come back and resolve it. And they may agree to disagree. And on that note, we had some family friends, gosh, years and years and years ago, and so hanging out at their house, and noticed that they had some nice side tables, but they had no coffee table, and it became very obvious as everyone sort of holding their drinks and the plates on the knees and stuff. And so they mentioned, oh yeah, we don't we're not getting a coffee table. I'm like, Curious George here. It's like, why? And they couldn't agree on it. They could not agree. They went to all sorts of furniture stores, and they had very diverse tastes and preferences for that coffee table. So they're a successful couple. They agreed that they weren't going to have a coffee table, because if one of them caved in and saw that every day in the living room, that might not sit well or feel well for them. And so they said, we use the side tables. We hold it in our hand. It's okay. We don't mind. So they came to their solution. They didn't fight. Nobody caved, and they showed up as a successful couple that felt we can live with this. So conflict resolution and constructive conversations may look differently for you than they were for somebody else. Maybe if you were in that relationship, you couldn't have lived without a coffee table. And so you would have shifted or adjusted and gone along with something that might not have been your first choice. Who knows? It's their relationship. It was their marriage. It was their solution. And that's what I want you to know. You're unique. Your relationship is unique. You guys are going to show up differently. But statistically, numbers wise, understand we have a very narrow bandwidth of time to get that productive, insightful conflict conversation out there and resolved. Statistically, we're going to disagree a lot of times, and we're going to need to know, how do we let go in that moment, set it aside, and effectively, productively, with some very proven strategies, come back to get the resolution or the agreement that we're going to agree to disagree. So I will see you tomorrow, and we'll be talking to more about what happens if we don't talk about these things. We don't come back, right? So I'll talk to you later. Questions, just DM me, and I will be in touch. Bye.